This episode of Spectre Sound Studios is brought to you by Nail the Mix. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 88 of SMG Viewers Comments. Let's get right to it.
Hi Glenn, I think this is the first time I've seen you use a sub kick. What's your opinion on them and what ways do you think they're better than a regular kick mic? Cheers from Louisiana.
Yeah, it turns out you just weren't paying attention because I use a sub kick on just about all my recordings. If you check out my series, How to Record Heavy Drums, I've even got one video that details on how to make your own sub kick. The truth is, I really dig the sub kick. I use it all the time. It's a great enhancement for low frequency. Now, a sub kick is something I'd recommend to just about everybody. It's a wonderful way to round out the extreme bottom end of your kick drum because it's designed to pick up that bottom end. It's a much bigger diaphragm. It's basically a speaker in reverse. Now, unfortunately, Yamaha doesn't make the sub kick anymore, but Sullivan Mics has come along with this offering, and I'm going to be demoing this on the show very soon.
Hey Glenn, I go to college for music production, and in my recording class, we just started going over how to record drums. Since I've watched your videos, I know you like to have the drummer work around the engineer. For example, having the hi-hat far away from the snare to decrease bleed. So I asked my professor about who should work around who. He says, in his opinion, the engineer should work around the drummer. What are your thoughts on that? And in turn, what are your thoughts on going to recording school for recording versus just learning it through YouTube for cheap? Thanks.
That's an absolutely fantastic question on a number of levels, and I gave this some thought. The question you asked to your professor was a good question, but I don't think you asked a couple of follow-up questions. And what your professor said wasn't necessarily wrong, but the one question I didn't hear in this was, what genre is he talking about? Because if you're talking, say, classic rock, yeah, work around the drummer. I mean, like, in a lot of cases, you're using, the Glenn Johns technique, or if you're like going after a Zeppelin type sound, you're talking about the mic's backed off. You're not talking about super separation. You're talking about getting an overall drum sound, and that's fine. But if you're going for a separated drum sound like you are on a modern metal production, yeah, your drummer's going to have to work with you and learn how to break his kit up a little more. Otherwise, you're not going to get that separation, and you're not going to get that kind of control that you need in a modern metal mix. Now, with your professor's philosophy, work around the drummer, yeah, sure, it'll work if you're planning on replacing everything with samples. But if you want to capture the drummer's performance, if you want something real, yeah, you guys are going to have to work together and find a happy medium. The other thing you got to ask yourself about recording school, to follow up that question, is take a look at your professors and ask to listen to their resume. What have they done? Because I find a lot of recording schools don't have a lot of guys with a lot of experience recording metal. Maybe there's some rock and roll, maybe there's some TV work, some radio work, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that, but what I'm saying is recording metal takes a very specific skill set because it's extremely challenging music to do. So take that into consideration when you're checking out a recording school. Has anybody at that school ever made a record you would buy? That's the question you should be asking yourself.
Would you ever be willing to release or sell the stem tracks for your cover of Moon on the Water? Thanks.
That's something I'd really like to do at some point. I'm going to have to get permission from the guys from Beat Crusaders because it's their song. This might be my version of it, but it is their track. So I'm going to have to look into that and see what happens. Meanwhile, I highly recommend checking out this. Okay, everybody, this episode is proudly sponsored by Nail the Mix. It's an online recording school where you get your hands on real multi-tracks by awesome bands. This month's project is the song Monstro City by Meshuggah. If there is one band that defines the sound of modern metal, it has to be Meshuggah. And this is your chance to get your hands on their multi-tracks and see how it's done. And the best mix will win over $1,200 in prizes from Ibanez. Tua Madsen will take you through the mix and explain how he puts it all together in an online Q&A. And these things are absolutely amazing. I have watched episodes on Machine Head, Gojira, and Jason Richardson, and I always learn something new. They are an incredible resource for anyone who wants to learn to mix audio. Step up your game over at nailthemix.com/Meshuggah. This one is going to be amazing. Now back to the show.
Nickelback walks into a bar. There's no punchline because ruining music isn't funny.
Bravo, sir.
Hey Glenn, I was wondering what your thought is on the original guitar god Chuck Berry passing on Saturday.
Chuck Berry was an interesting character, there's a guy who inspired a million people, millions upon millions of people to play guitar. I mean, I remember being a little kid hearing Johnny B. Good, that's just one of those songs that just makes you smile and just want to, get into music. Chuck was a little weird though. I think he had a thing for people peeing. He had a restaurant where he installed a camera into the women's washroom. That was a little gross, but hey, nobody's perfect, I guess. We'll miss you, Chuck, you freaky bastard. And now for a comment from somebody with a worse last name than me, if that's ever possible. Mr. David Analfurs.
I really don't want to downplay this. Getting it in one take is cool and rare, but let's be honest. That song is easy as fuck to play.
Well, Mr. Analfurs, I'm sure it is easy to you, but let's be honest with you too. It's one thing to write a comment and say, oh, well, that was easy because Oliver made it look easy. The trick is doing it when you've got the cameras and mics pointed at you and you're paying those rates at that kind of studio and not getting nervous. If you can pull that off, you'll definitely have my respect. Good luck with that.
Well played. Dawes turned too many drummers into creatures of comfort. Still, wanted to ask you, Glenn, since this is drum related, ever found that small, shallow kits tend to fit easier in a heavy mix, like 20 by 14 or 16 inch small? To my ears, the reduced depth causes a pleasant sounding thud in the low mids that reacts differently to compression and plays well with instruments tuned satanically low. Your opinions on this, my good sir?
That's something I really want to investigate. If you remember, I did that video a few months ago. We went to YC Drums up in Kitchener, Ontario, and the guy there was telling us about, shallower kick drums actually being easier to play for double bass if you've got a front head on them because there's more bounce back. That's something we definitely want to investigate. We're going to get TJ's Tama kit here in a little while too because he's got shallower toms and I want to see how that cuts through a dense mix. It's definitely worth investigating. Thanks for bringing that up.
Couldn't agree with the tempo change thing more. Do it when it makes sense, not because your drummer is an idiot.
Well, I can't really add too much to that other than, hey, that's fantastic advice. Make sure you tell your drummer that. Don't be an idiot.
What are your thoughts on Tom Allom working with Judas Priest again for their upcoming album?
Not only Tom Allom, they've got Andy Sneap on this one as well. I am fucking stoked beyond belief. Talk about a dream team. All they've got to do now is get some good songs on that record, and it'll be amazing. I mean, in terms of production, yeah, Tom Allom did everything from Hellbent to Leather all the way up to Ram It Down. He had a good 10-year run with Priest, and he did a lot of their really classic stuff. Again, the aforementioned Hellbent for Leather, British Steel, Defenders of the Faith, Screaming for Vengeance, and then Turbo and Ram It Down. But anyway, Tom is one of my biggest fucking heroes ever when it comes to record production. I've been a fan of his pretty much since I fucking started listening to music. Screaming for Vengeance was the album that turned me on to metal. The fact that Andy Sneap's engineering is just, I couldn't have asked for better. Andy's got to be one of the top modern metal producers. Here's a guy who knows how to make digital work and make it sound great. I mean, there's a laundry list of amazing albums he's done. Andy's one of my fucking heroes as well. So the fact that two of these guys are working together is going to be unbelievable. That being said, I've got a sneaky suspicion this is probably going to be Priest's last record. They're definitely getting up there. The fact that they brought Tom Allom out of retirement makes me wonder if this is going to be Priest's last hurrah. But might as well go out on a high note. Best of luck to them. I really can't wait to hear what they come up with.
Weren't you the one that said you hate when guitarists stare at their fretboards during videos?
Yes, and if I had directed that video, I would have slapped the guitar player silly. But then again, that's what happens when you let the drummer direct the video. Yeah, you can fucking knock one out of the park, get like a 7-minute epic song in one take, but can't remember, to tell a guitar player to stop staring at his fretboard. Nice going, Oliver.
Just subbed. Possibly the best video I've come across this week. Actually, definitely the best video I've seen this week.
Glad to be of help, man. Thank you so much for coming on board. Hope to be of more help in the future.
I know you fucking hate Line 6, but what is your opinion about the Line 6 Helix?
I think Line 6 should grow a pair and send me one and see if it survives the hammer of truth.
So I went and listened to Meeting Place and Time again. I had no idea you worked with woods. That's seriously cool. I know this is probably complex, but what's your biggest complaint about that mix?
Other than the fact I barely knew what I was doing, and we had the gain cranked up way too much on the guitars, and Dave couldn't play with quarters on the kick drums. Nothing. Seriously though, that was an interesting record. We did that one in the summer of 2002, and it was like in the middle of August, and we were in my first studio, my basement studio in a little inner city house I used to live in. And yeah, that was a fun week we spent on that record, That was my biggest gripe though, was I used to put quarters on the kick drums. It's before I discovered Thalum slam pads or the Danmar kick pads. We just like duct tape quarters on there, and Dave, for whatever reason, just could not play. So we wound up getting a really shitty kick sound. The initial release of that Woods of Ypres disc had a terrible kick sound. Yeah, I just couldn't get it to sound good at all. And then I remember a couple months later, I finally got my first copy of Drumagog, which was obviously sample replacement, so I did a decent kick sound and remixed Meeting Place and Time, and I think that's what you're hearing up on YouTube now. I could be wrong. Yeah, that definitely brought that whole together, because that initial kick mix sounded just fucking awful. It stuck out like a sore thumb. Who knew that fucking record would do so well or would, become some kind of black metal fucking classic? I had no idea. That was definitely my favorite song on that record. Aaron Palmer's vocals were absolutely fucking haunting on that song. Love that track.
Dear Glenn, what do you think about 80s guitar-based glam bands such as Dawkins, Striper, and Quiet Riot? I personally think that they have really good melodic sense and aren't as shit as everybody say.
Well, I'd rather go see Dawkins than Tears for Fears, let's put it that way. In fact, I've seen Dawkins twice. Love that band. George Lynch, incredible fucking guitar player. Hell, the guys in Striper were great guitar players. Oz Fox, really nice guy. Met him in NAMM a couple years ago. Always been a Quiet Riot fan as well. Yeah, I know there's this penchant for making fun of the 80s Sunset Strip bands and the glam scene and all that, but they were amazing guitar players and they wrote good fucking songs, much better than the crap that they put on the radio back in those days, like Wake Me Up Before You Fucking Go-Go.
Ever since I subscribed to the Warwick channel and see all their sick-ass basses and demos, I am getting a little triggered at all the bass player hatred.
Yeah, if you want respect, don't use the word triggered on this channel. Ain't gonna work out so well for you, pal. Quick! Somebody call an ambulance! A bass player got his feelings hurt by having his panties in a twist! What are the odds? All right, everybody, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the SMG shop. We've got a brand new shirt in stock. It's called Bass Players Do It Worser, with the R crossed out with a red X by the bass player. Don't forget to check out Nail the Mix. The Meshuggah track is going to be absolutely incredible, and I will see you guys next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this episode. If you like the content, please support the channel either at my SMG shop or through my Patreon. If you want to see more, hit one of the playlists. Thanks for watching. I'm out of here.